thanks for being here for the fourth session here in our Adventures into Self-Mastery. It's a pleasure to be here and sharing with you this information. Welcome. And just a little bit about self-mastery, why this course I feel is important as to understand what it means to have self-mastery, like we've been discussing the last three sessions, is, it's not necessarily around not having any stress, not having any anxiety, not having any challenges or transitions in life, because those things are going to happen. And certainly not about not having any stress in your life, because that's going to happen as well. And we actually need that, as we'll discuss. It's around learning how to have mastery over how you navigate life's transitions, how you navigate and manage your emotions effectively when life throws certain things in your way, and how to ask quality questions at the right time, to be able to not get stuck in a revolution. When we have a cycle of revolution, we're stuck in there, and being able to ask quality questions, being able to look at full quantum of events in our life is really important if you want to move through these transitions and get off the merry-go-round of revolution and move into evolution and keep growing and keep learning and building whatever life it is you want to build. So that's what these courses are about. These sessions are about. We have 12 of them. And this is number 4 tonight. We're going to get into some nice topics. This is because of the illusion of loss and gain. And I think it's a very great topic that I think that all of us at some point in our life, I'm sure, have had or maybe currently having. And certainly sometime in your life, you're going to experience the perception that you may have lost something or someone, or gained something or someone. And we're going to kind of teach you how to navigate those transitions a little more effectively, as we move along. So here's a great question. Who is Dr. Dave Tuck? And I was thinking about that question today, and I was like, I never really actually ever considered that question in my life until I was about 30. This was 23 years ago. Before then, no one ever asked me this quality question. I think it's probably the most important quality question that you can ask yourself. So I encourage everyone just to think about that for a moment. Who are you, and what does that actually mean? And when you really think about it, who you are is not really your relationships. It's not really your career, your financial situation, or even your health. It's really, who are you is your essence. It's who are you as a person? What are your values? What makes you tick? What gets you excited? What gets you down? What gets you up in the morning? And what is that? Who are you? And what is it that you're here to do? And I think part of the series, if you've seen the first 3, we're really centering around this question of who you are as a person. What is your identity? What are your values? What's your mission? And what does it mean for you to be an authentic person? What does it mean to you to show up and just be yourself? And I think that's the most important question we can ask ourselves, is really dive into who you are. And as we go along with these series, if you haven't seen the first 3, I encourage you to go take a look, because we're building on top of this question, really. And so, who is Dave Tuck? Dave Tuck is someone who loves teaching, is inspired about sharing his message, inspired about building businesses, inspired about traveling, and just creating connections with myself and others. So I think each individual has their own unique expression of who we are, and what an important way to, really get clear about where you want to go in your life. What relationships you want to attract to your life, what's your career that you would love to be in, how would you love to look and feel, and the answer to that is centered around who you are as a person. A lot of times we'll have advice out externally from people, authority figures that give us ideas about what they think we should do, but really it's around who are you and what do you want to do with your life. That's why I like to really focus on this. I created this rich model, I don't know, about 10 years ago. Tanya and I collectively came up with this way of really looking at your life and helping answer that question, which is, who are you? there's four, then like I said, there's four components of this, RICH. So we got your relationships, your identity in the middle, career and health. And so I always like to talk about this in the beginning, because this is something we'll use in every course. This is something that I use on a regular basis, to be able to just put your life in perspective and put your life into categories, so you can kind of really get an overview of your life, because it's not just a one-sided life. When I work with clients, we're always working with all areas of life, because we all have relationships, we all are in career, and we all have health, and it's really all centered around who you are. And that's why in the center of the rich method here is really that identity piece. And this is why we spend so much time asking the question, who are you and why are you here? Now, the complete model, if you want to write this down somewhere, is here. So obviously we've got the main portion, which is the rich: relationship, identity, career, health. In the center with your identity, you've got three components. When you want to know about your identity, it's around your values, your mission, and then you showing up to being authentic, the VMA. These are the three components that really make up who you are as a person, your identity, and how you want to show up into the world. And we express ourselves through our values, which are in these other areas of life. And so with the relationship, we have the three areas. We've got your social life, friends, we've got your family, and then we've got your partner. And that could be you. If you're not with the partner, then, our first partner is ourselves. And so whether you're with the partner or not, this is an important piece of the relationship, is what is the relationship you have with yourself. Then we move with the C, which is the career area of life. And this has to do with our service that we're here to provide, the wealth that we choose to build in whatever form that is, which doesn't have to be cash form. It may be in other areas of life that you have your wealth. And it's the receiving, the service is the giving, and the wealth is receiving. And the M is the mastery of that service, and how you want to continue to master your gifts and talents and share with the world. And then we move down to the H, which is the health area, which is the mind, body, health. Now, three components there: chemical health, physical health, and then the emotional health, which, when you step back and look at the model, it's the base of the model. It's kind of to me, the emotions are that trump card that can actually trump the others. And so I like this model because you can see your life as a perspective. And there's a lot of models out there about how you can look at life, and there's different ways to categorize your life. And some I've seen have 12 areas, some have 4 areas, some have 7 areas. To me, this is a simple way to really step back and take a look at your life from a bird's eye view, and really categorize. Once you know your values, your mission, what it means to be authentic, really look and see how you want to show up in each area. And these are the areas of our life, the RCH, to where we'll get our greatest feedback. When we're not living our values, when we're not on mission, and we're not living that authentic expression, it's designed, the universe is designed to give us that feedback mechanism in these areas of life: stresses, chaos, confusion, in your relationships, in your career, in your finances, in your health. You're going to see feedback in these areas of life that are really designed to actually get you back on track again. And so we've talked this through the last course, and about the importance of understanding how to really look at that feedback from your life, and know how to make these adjustments, and what lessons have you not learned, and where are you not seeing full quantum, so you can get the lesson of the stress. And it helps you get back to that identity piece again. The identity is the cog in the wheel. And all the other areas kind of revolve around that. As you can see how the model works, it's every part of life has your identity wrapped up into it, and in each area of life is wrapped into each other area of life. And so as you get clear and strong and grounded in your identity, values, your mission, and your authentic expression, that's when the full expression can be created through the areas of life. I work with a lot of clients who have really built relationships and built their career and built, a health in their mind and body, but they weren't really clear about who they are. And in my experience, this is my own personal experience, actually, I didn't start asking the question, who am I, until I was 30 years old. And by then I was in relationships and I had kids and I had built a successful career. And when I look back, my health was so-so at the time. And so when I started really looking and asking the question, who am I as a person, and what do I want to do in regards to my mission here? And what does it really mean for me to be authentic? What happens sometimes is once you get that clarity of that centerpiece and that I and that identity, it can create chaos in the areas as you learn to integrate. Because you may have been living your life, I know in my case for 30 years, doing and acting a certain way, making certain decisions. And when I look back, those decisions weren't necessarily made around my authentic expression. They were around what I thought I should be doing or have to be doing or got to be doing. And then when you start to really get into what would I love to do for my life, sometimes those answers will create, and most of the time actually they will create a little bit of chaos in the areas of your life. And so when you can get solid in that I, you can have more of a clearer vision about how you would love your life to be in your relationship, career, health. And when you have the clarity, in my experience, of where you want to go, and you have a certainty of who you are, now it's just a matter of connecting the dots from where you are to where you would love to be. And so we've been talking a lot around in the first 3 classes, just a little recap. The first class, we discussed how to capitalize on your uniqueness. And we all have our own uniqueness. And that's that middle piece. That's the values, your mission, and your authentic expression. And so if you haven't seen class 1, take a look at it. It's on my YouTube channel or my website, drdavetuck.com, and really remind yourself of these. How do you identify these 3 pieces? And if you haven't signed up for a synergy call, get one with myself, and let's work through clarifying your values a bit, clarifying a little bit more about your mission and who you are, so you can really get down to creating your life. Class 2, we talked about how to use your 3 superpowers to get what you want. And when I'm talking about superpowers, 3 things. Number 1, how to use that intuition. And we talked about the difference between intuition, which is more centered and full quantum experience, versus being in the infatuated stage and being impulsive and running towards something you think has more positive and negatives, benefits and drawbacks, or being using your instinct, which is seeing more negatives and positives, and kind of running away from things because you see more negatives and positives instinctually. And so your intuition is getting you back to center again, where you can now access the inner voice. And when you can get to your intuition, access the inner voice, then you can have questions answered, like what to do about certain relationships or your career path or finances or health. You can get off the fence about things because you have a real solid clarity about who you are and what you want when you can tap into your 3 superpowers. It really helps you get off the fence and get off that revolution and into evolution, when you can access that part of you that is always there. Class 3, last class, we talked around that you can't mess things up. And we talked around the law of polarity, which talks around how you can't have a positive without a negative, and you have full quantum in every experience. And it's our perceptions that when you only see half the quantum or pieces of the quantum, you may have a perception of more negative than positive, or positive and negative. And when you do, that creates emotional stress, which then can affect your ability to move forward. And then you stay stuck where you are. And so how to tap into the intuition, use your superpowers, and learn how to see both sides by asking quality questions of every experience that's both positive and negative, and not just one-sided. So the homework for last time, if you were here, was go through your life and scan and see if there's any events or circumstances where you may see more positive than negative or negative than positive. And that would be something to start working on and asking those quality questions we discussed last time. So if you haven't seen the first 3, go check them out. That's a great foundation to build off of. Tonight, we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to talk a little bit around the illusion of loss and gain, which is going to just build a little bit off the law of polarity and talk around the law of conservation. So let's move on. to the illusion of loss and gain and what that actually means in regards to us. So there's three components we're going to cover tonight. Number one, we're going to talk about the law of conservation. We're going to talk about how nothing is missing and everything just has new forms. And we're going to talk about how do we ask those quality questions to find the perfection that exists in life. So let's move forward here with this. Law of conservation. Here's what it says. That you will never have a loss without a gain. You never have a gain without a loss. Everything and every person, every being has an energy to it, has a frequency, has a vibration. And so the law of conservation talks around how you don't have a loss or a gain without a loss. You simply have a transformation. And what this is an important key to understand about things are just transforming. Because if you don't really grasp this, then you will have a perception that you may have lost something, or you have gained something. And one of the greatest fears that when I work with clients that I see is they have this fear about gaining something that you resent or don't want in your life, that you think may have more negatives than positive, or losing something that you perceive as more positives than negatives, or gives you more benefits and drawbacks. And so those fears, when you have those fears, those drive anxiety for the future. And it drives you not being present in the moment because of the future anxiety and fear. Because if you perceive you've had an experience in the past that had more negatives than positives, okay, that you've lost more than you've gained, then you're going to have a anxiety around the repeating of that in the future. And then you'll make decisions based on the fear and not based on full quantum experience. Because the law of conservation is also talking about full quantum. Not only do you have a both positive and negative, but you also have an equal gain and equal loss. And it doesn't change. Everything just transforms into a new form of energy that you need in the moment. And to know how to really access and ask those questions in the moment when you perceive you've lost something, where you can see where it's now shown up in the new form, or you see where you've gained something and how it's shown up in a new form and has equal benefits and drawbacks, you can continue to stay present by seeing full quantum and then make decisions back to the intuition piece. Because when you get it, when you have lopsided perceptions, you polarize and you get out of intuition. And when you can bring things back into balance by asking questions and seeing both sides, you get access back to intuition, inner voice comes online, and you can start really listening more clearly. So the law of conservation is, a good example of this. I was working with a client just a couple of weeks ago who had a perception that he had actually lost his finances. At one point, he had lots of money, lots of freedoms, lots of time, basically doing what he wanted to do. And then he found himself through decisions, through circumstances, where he was actually going to file bankruptcy. When I started working with him, he was down in the dumps, depressed, he was angry, he was frustrated, his self-esteem was shot because in his perception, he had lost the thing that he perceived gave him the most stability in life, gave him the most freedom in life. And that was his finances. So when we started tackling this and asking him questions like, where now is the new form of wealth showing up? And where's your new form of stability that you perceive wealth gives you? And of course, when we first asked the question, because of the way he was feeling, couldn't think of anything, nothing. And so with some probing and asking more questions, and we looked at the model. Let's go back to this model for a second. Well, I like having the model when you're processing things, you can really look at stuff. So for him, he had perceived a loss of wealth, a loss of stability in that area of life. So when he asked him, where's the new form of wealth showing up? Where have you gotten more stability in your life? And when we asked that question, the answer was clear. Well, my wife and I were having troubles, and now we've gotten a lot closer, and I feel more stable as a dynamic with her. We feel more of a team because we're going through this hardship financially. Great. What's some more? Where else is it showing up? Wow. Well, I've gotten replugged back into my business because I kind of lost sight of it because I was making so much money. I kind of took it for granted. And so now I plugged back in and I've started back into the basics. And now I'm actually seeing a greater vision for my clinic. More stability there, right? Yes, more stability. Great. What else? Well, my health wasn't doing great because I was feeling stressed out. And so I actually started working out more, going to the gym, eating better because I was gaining some weight because I was so stressed out. And now I've lost 10 pounds and now I'm feeling more stable in my body. My back stopped hurting, my neck stopped hurting. I'm feeling better. And so this went on for, we kept going more and more and more until he saw all the new forms that have shown up and how that his wealth had just transformed from financial wealth to the other forms of wealth. And then the quality question came, well, what's the benefit to you that your financial wealth has transformed into these other forms of wealth in your relationship, in your health, and actually in your business? And again, it was clear, closer to his wife, more stable. He felt more grounded in that. He had more health. His business was about to explode again, and he was feeling more energized about his life. And so when we asked him the last question, which was, well, what was the drawback to you of the old form? And if you had the old form, what would be a drawback to you? Great. The answer that he came up with was brilliant. It was, if I had it in the old form and I kept going in that direction, I can see where I probably would have been crashed in my relationship. My health would have suffered, and eventually my business, because I was taking my eye off of it. I was feeling cocky in my life, and I was feeling ungrounded, and I was feeling like I was a little bit out of control. And so being able to ask these quality questions and given these light bulb moments really helped shift his perception about his wealth. And then I asked him, would you change it again? Would you go back and have that again? And he said, absolutely not. And so what was happening was his anxiety was lessening, his depression was lessening, his self-worth was coming up as we kept working this process. And then you could see him at some point get clear and have gratitude for exactly what is as it is and not want to change a thing. And then when he hit that state, you could see him tearing up and he felt back again. He felt like he was reconnected back to his identity, reconnected back to his vision, back to his intuition, back to inner voice. And so these kind of quality questions are the things you want to ask when you're perceiving that you're going through a period where you feel like you may have a loss. And these questions, I've learned these for many years through Dr. Demartini. This is a part of his grief process that we go through, that I've seen him do, 100 times through people and helping them navigate experiences where they may perceive that you've lost a thing or you perceive you lost a person. And so good example was with this person I was just mentioning. So being able to ask these type of questions and understanding that everything just is transforming. And you're always looking for that full quantum. And how do you know when you're not seeing full quantum? You will have feedback. And what's the feedback going to show up in? It's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in your career. It may show up in your finances. It may show up in your health, but you're going to have some feedback from externally and internally from your own health and well-being. Your physiology will shift when you're not seeing full quantum. And so one of the most important things, we talked about this on the first session, was your ability to know when it's time to stop and reflect and ask yourself questions. Do a check-in with yourself. How do I feel in my relationships, my partner, my family, my social life? How's that feel? Do I feel stable and grounded there? Am I having chaos or order in your career? How am I feeling in my service? Am I feeling with my health and well-being in the H area? Am I chemically, physical, or emotional challenged? And I recommend it's weekly, if not more, especially when you're going through transitions. Stop and check in with yourself, because you will be getting feedback when you're not in full quantum, when you're having a misperception about your life, when you might be feeling that you have gained something or lost something. Because when you see that, you're going to polarize and you're going to have feedback. So tonight is around learning how to ask these quality questions when you get in the transition period of having to navigate certain circumstances, navigating experiences that show up. Maybe it's a death of a loved one. Maybe it's a loss of a relationship. Maybe it's a loss of a job. Maybe it's loss of money. Maybe it's loss of health and well-being, which I think over the last couple of years, certainly we've seen with what's been going on in the world, there's been a lot more stress in each area of life. I've worked with clients who have had stresses in each area of life. Excuse me. And so I think there's no better time than to really be learning how to ask these quality questions and learning how to navigate your life. And that's the part of self-mastery that we're talking about, is you being able to navigate these transitions, navigate your life circumstances on your own by learning how to answer and ask quality questions. Beautiful. Now, if anyone has questions as we go along, put them in the chat box and we'll get to those at the end. If I can navigate to them. Normally Gia is here to navigate all that, but I encourage you to ask questions so we can, if there's anything you're stuck on, then let me admit another person here. There we go. Boom, there's Gia. Thanks guys for being patient. Hola, Gia. Okay, good. All right, let's keep rolling. Hey, Gia.
Hello, Dave.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah. Is it started?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay.
We're 20 so minutes in, so we're good.
Okay, great.
All right.
I think we have the different time zones right now.
Oh.
Because here it's 5:28.
Okay, so yeah, we had a time change, so we're 7 Central. No problem.
Yeah,
We're rolling along.
Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. Thanks for being here. Let anyone in if they come. And I just talked about putting questions in the chat box. So if you'll field those, that'd be terrific. Great. Now, also want to talk around a little bit about a little bit more about the law of conservation. I actually had just another client I want to talk about who sometimes we can have the perception that we gain something without a loss. Because I think we focus a lot on the loss without the gain. But a good example is I had a client who bought a house, and he was really seeing more benefits than drawbacks, more positives than negatives about the house. And after about 3 months of being in the house, all of a sudden he started seeing the other side of the equation, all the pieces of the puzzle, which is, I've got to pay for property taxes now, and I've got to do landscaping, and I've got to, it's way more upkeep and it's way more expensive. I've got to, I have a lawn person now. And so it's important that when you're making decisions in life, whatever that area that is, relationship, career, health, that you are able to really give yourself the opportunity to see. Hey guys, can you mute you?
Sorry, Dave. Could you ask Gia to put her thing on mute? Because
yeah. Gia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you put it on mute? Yours on mute because there's some background noise.
Yes, I'm good.
Perfect. Gracias.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were 1 second ahead of me on that. I was thinking the same thing. Okay, great. So any questions about the law of conservation? Any questions about this so far? Again, questions in the chat box, and we'll certainly cover those at the end of the show. So, okay, next, let's talk about nothing is missing, just new forms. And again, we've kind of talked through that just a bit already. everything kind of spills over here into this next piece. Whoops, let's go back. Good thing makes it just form. So let's talk about grief a minute, because I think that we can't talk about loss and gain without talking about grief. And again, the grief process, which I've been studying for 20 something years with through Dr. Demartini, and I've applied this in my own life, in my earlier life, and I've applied this with clients who are going through processes, and and we will grieve the loss of what we infatuate. We don't grieve the loss of something that we resent, and we actually don't grieve the loss of something that we see has both positive and negatives, because then we see transformation. When you infatuate with something, it's hard to get to the state of seeing the new forms, because if you're infatuate on a form of something, whether that's a person, a relationship, a friend, a family member, or you're infatuated with like a job, or you're infatuated with money, or you're infatuated with the way you look or your health, then when you perceive it's missing or leaving, then you will grieve that because you perceive a loss of it. Okay. And so part of the piece of the puzzle is applying the law of polarity, because by seeing both sides, positive, negative, and then adding the law of conservation by seeing the new forms. But you can't see new forms if you're stuck in the bipolar state of positive or negative, loss or gain. And so grieving is something that, we hear about. And I know that I had never actually gone through the process myself. Not that I haven't had grief over like financial loss or business loss or loss of a girlfriend or relationship, because certainly those are going to grieve. You're going to grieve over anything that you feel is important to you, that you have more positive, negative. So it's going to happen. And so I had experience about a year and 3 months ago now, where my spouse passed away. And so it was the first really time in my life where I really felt that feeling of what that's like to have a grief over someone. Now, obviously, grandparents have passed away and those kind of things. But, when we have these atomic bombs go off in our life, they're unexpected, of something that we really love, and we will have the grief process. We will have the grief feeling, the grief feedback, and then the process is there to help you navigate through that. So I've had a really great firsthand experience on how that process works, and really I've been applying this to my own life and my clients. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's really important. Now, I've been studying a lot of grief the last few years, especially this last year and 3 months. And out there, the model out in the world is, I was talking to people, it's going to take 5 years. It's going to take 3 years. You never get over that, those kind of things. And so when I was studying grief, basically what I found was that the feedback that is normal out there in the world is there's 5 stages that they talk about going through. You have the denial phase, which is, I can't believe this is happening. This is not happening. I don't want to accept this. You've got the anger phase, which is you're angry about this happening. And then there's the bargaining phase, which is, what can I do to make sure this doesn't happen? How can I stop this? I'll do anything, those kind of phases. And then you get into depression, which is you're perceiving your life without this particular person or thing is not as good. And then you finally get to the point of what they call acceptance at the end. So I found it interesting as I was studying those 5 pieces, those 5 points, because when I looked at my own life of going through the process, I can see that I kind of went through little stages of those things. Each one of those at some point showed up. So I don't deny they're there. The incompleteness that I found with that was when you get to acceptance. I'm not sure if any of you had experiences where you have had something happen, someone maybe did something to you, or you had an experience where you finally got to, well, I'm just going to accept this. When I hear people say, I'm just going to accept it, I'm just going to accept this for what it is, the problem is that's not really gratitude. That's not actually seeing full quantum, because you may accept something, but you can still be upset about it. You may accept it, but still be angry about it. And so So the key here is to get to the last stage, which is actually getting gratitude. And this is where the process comes into play that I found in my own life, in my own story. And so as soon as Tanya, when she passed away, there was this feeling of all these feelings wrapped up into one. And I remember after about a day or two of feeling that way, I thought, well, wow, I can't stay in this for very long. This isn't how I want to show up and live my life. So I called some friends and we started working through the process, really taking it through step by step. Let's dissolve the grief. Let's dissolve the infatuation. Let's work through the process. So, and then see what happens. And it's been a beautiful experience to really see firsthand how, when you can start to ask the quality questions and you start to see full quantum, how that shifts your emotions and it shifts how you feel about yourself and your life and get you back to center again. Because certainly there were pieces, there's layers to this process that you go through, depending on how the level of infatuation, depending on the level of loss that you may be perceiving, depending on the connection you might have with this thing or person. And again, it doesn't have to be a person, it can be anything. You can grieve over the loss of a banana. It's the most important. If you see more positive negatives and all of a sudden someone takes them away from you, you're going to grieve that. So you can grieve of loss of anything that you perceive gives you more benefits and drawbacks, gives you more positive and negative. So in the process, the grief process of working, say, with the death, well, you may be perceiving that this person had more benefits and drawbacks to you in your life. Your relationship had more benefits and drawbacks. You had more gains with it than without it. And so when you're in those states of polarization, that keeps you stuck in revolution and you're not able to see the full quantum experience. And it's in the full quantum experience where you have the lessons and you have the opportunity to love what is as it is. There were times throughout my process personally to where, because I saw more benefits and drawbacks to the relationship, that when I compared myself to that old reality, that I couldn't live up to that. And so that will make you feel like, what's the point? I've already experienced something that I can't reach again. So what's the point in going forward? And then that creates a depression feeling, because now you're comparing your reality to what it used to be, thinking it's not as good. And now you're going to be depressed, which is a beautiful feedback that's letting you know that you're not seeing full quantum. And so as you go through these types of processes and you ask the quality questions, you start clearing out the emotions when you start to see both sides. I've taken several people through this over the last year or so. And it's amazing to see how you can actually shift your perceptions so quickly and then move on with your life. Because when you're not seeing full quantum and you're comparing what is or what was to what is, and you're seeing it's better, you actually stop the doors from opening to moving into a new part of life. Because when you think that what you had was better than what you got, then doors are shut. And when you don't appreciate what is as it is, then the universe is not going to continue to give you more things. Think about if you gave someone a gift and they never appreciated the gift and never acknowledged the gift. And they thought that, well, this gift's not as good as the old gifts. I want the old gifts back. Would you continue to give more gifts to this person? And, of course, the answer is probably not. And so to open your life up to more gifts, it's important to learn how to see the full quantum of any experience that you've got, whether it's a loss of a person or a thing, to be able to see how it transforms into new experience, new people, new places, new things. For me personally, one of the hallmarks that I worked through was having the team with my partner, and so the questions I had to ask myself was, what's the new form of team that shows up? Who's now showed up in your life that's actually playing that role in your life? Question one. Okay, great. I can see that this person showed up in my life. I can see that this friend has showed up in my life, and now we're a team. I can see that my team at the clinic has shown up, and we became more of a team. Beautiful. On and on and on and on until you see and exhaust all the new forms that are showing up in. Great. Next, what's the benefit of the new form? How's the new form now actually serving you, serving your highest values, serving your mission, and is more authentic to you now in your life? How is it serving? How is it fulfilling your values? Great. Well, I feel more relaxed in this situation. I feel like I'm being heard more. I feel that I'm getting more opportunities in my business now because of XYZ person showing up. And again, exhausting many more and more and more and more answers to those questions. Beautiful. Now, what would be the what's the drawback of the old form that you think you're missing? How is it a drawback? And how would it be a drawback today if that form was still present in your life? So again, well, sometimes I wasn't being heard. Sometimes it felt like we had conflict when we tried to work on projects, and I was alienated from other people at the time, and those kind of things. So again, more and more answers to the questions. And when you can start to really answer these questions fully and to see full quantum and to see the new forms showing up, what new forms is it showing up in? What are the benefits of those new forms? What's the drawback to the old forms in past and present and going into the future? When you can ask those quality questions, now you get to the answers to what's happening in reality today. Because living in the past and wishing that you had what you had in the past on today is futile. You can't do it. You can't change it. You can only appreciate where you are today and then plan and vision for the future and build off of what was before and build off of what was in the past. And then appreciate in the present moment new forms that have shown up and how those new forms that have shown up perfectly align with your values and your mission, actually helping you get to where you want to go in your life. So if one of the homeworks I like to give is scan your life. Again, every course we've talked through, every session so far, at the end, we want you to scan your life. And then in this session, scan your life to see, is there any experience that you've had? Is there a person or a thing that you perceive you have lost and now you're resenting it, or you have grief over that, or you wish it didn't happen that way? Go through and scan decade by decade and just write down any experience, anything that you can think of that you still feel one-sided on, where you maybe don't have full quantum on, and get clear on that up till present day. And that's a beautiful place to start to help you dissolve past emotions. Because if you don't dissolve the past emotions of loss or gain, then you're going to have incomplete and you're going to be out of present moment. And then you have a fear and anxiety of the future. Same goes for gaining. Maybe you look back in your life and see that, did you gain something that you feel had or has more positive and negatives to it? Or today, is there something you feel that you've gained that has more positive negatives? Because sooner or later, you'll see those. Sooner or later, it's just like, I'm sure we've all had relationships where you might have an infatuation with someone. You see more positive and negatives. And yet, after a while, a week, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you start to see all those other sides. You start to see that other part of the quantum that you couldn't see before because you were blinded from the upsides and not seeing the downsides. You were being impulsive. Same goes for the instinct, like we talked last time. This, with the law of conservation, it's around seeing the new forms. It's around asking those questions. Not only is there positive, negative, but what are the new forms that showed up immediately in my life when this person left or this person passed away? What new forms showed up? What are the traits that I perceive I'm missing now that I perceive were there before and they're missing? And where are they showing up now? Who is taking on those new traits? Is it myself that's taken on some of those traits? Is it someone in my family? Is it someone in my job? Is it a pet? Who's taken on these new traits that you perceive as missing? And what a beautiful what a beautiful honoring of the new forms. Because again, if you don't recognize the new forms that it showed up, you don't recognize the new forms, then what you don't appreciate will eventually go away. And so by being able to recognize the new forms that have shown up, you can have more appreciation for what is as it is. And there's where you capitalize off of that, because we don't experience something by mistake. Every experience we have has a lesson that we're meant to learn. We draw in each experience that were needed to learn whatever we need to learn. We draw in the experience of someone in our life leaving, whether passing or just leaving your life. We draw in the experience of having, the feeling of more loss than gain or gain than loss, because that's an indicator that there's something there that we must learn, that we need now in our present, but also in the future. And so when you take the time to honor yourself and learn the lessons from these experiences, then you're able to really see full quantum and get back to the center, which is the I in the present moment, values, your mission, and also your authentic expression. Plus, if you have lost a member of a family or someone's passed, this year I was thinking, what if the tables were turned, what would I want? What would I want someone to do? If someone passed, would you want them grieving for years and years, or do you want them to get on with their life and live inspired and go do something amazing and actually grow? And certainly, I think we can all agree that would be the answer to the question. The challenge is when you don't have the quality questions, you don't know how to navigate this road. It can be certainly challenging. As I was going through this past year, I could certainly see how someone who didn't have these tools in the tool belt to navigate this type of transition could get stuck and lost totally in this grieving process and get lost in the illusion that you've lost something that can never return, or that you've gained something that now you're resenting. And so to be able to have these tools in your tool belt, as life gives you these challenges and transitions, which they surely will, you're able to navigate them more effectively. Now, it's an illusion to think that you're never going to have challenges or stress, but it's also an illusion to think that if you don't fully know how to see the full quantum of the experiences, whether it's positive, negative, the loss and gain, then you're certainly going to get stuck in revolution and you're not going to grow past that point. And, when I work with clients who are feeling stuck, it's a difficult process, because sometimes we're trained in life that we're supposed to grieve, or we're supposed to feel a certain way about things leaving. And the reality is that because we all have different sets of values, every single person filters every single event differently. And where you may see a loss, someone else is going to see a gain. Where you may see a benefit, someone else is going to see a drawback. You're looking at the same exact event, but yet everyone sees it a little differently. And that's why it has to be about you. Going back to the original question, who are you? Who are you? Why do you think the way you think? Why do you choose to do the things you do? It's worth the time and energy to get clear about your values, to get clear about your mission, because everything that you do from now on, today and into the future, and everything you did in the past, you did because you were trying to get your values met. And so if you're not conscious of this, then you'll make unconscious decisions around your life. If you're conscious of your values and you use that as a compass to answer questions by, to navigate transitions by, to take a look at what's happening in life, to take a look at the experiences of your life through a clear understanding of your values, then you're able to have self-mastery and can make decisions that are based around you and not based around other people's values. Because certainly if you're living your life according to other people's values, you're going to build resentment in yourself for not living your true values. And you may be doing that or may have done that. I think we all have gone through that, especially when you're younger, trying to really create our own identity in life. Again, I didn't learn to ask these questions. I was 30 years old. And so I think we'll continue to ask the questions for the rest of your life, which is, who are you? Because each time you have an experience of life, each time you have a transition in life, each time you navigate a roadblock or an obstacle, then that's a great time to get back to clear and ask the question, who am I now? Who am I as I navigate this transition? One of the most important questions I kept asking myself as I was going through this past year and 3 months was, who am I? Who would I want to become as a result of this experience? How can I grow from this experience? And what are the lessons I can learn and take forward to help teach others to how to navigate this experience? What are your other options when you look at it, really? Because you can either stay stuck in it or you can grow from it. And certainly in my situation, I chose, as difficult as it was and at the time of going through it, but looking back, it's been one of the greatest lessons of my life, certainly one of the biggest growth processes of my life. I certainly wouldn't be here teaching these courses if it wasn't for every experience, including that one up to this point. And so you have a choice to where you can capitalize on your experiences that happen by asking the quality questions, by seeing full quantum, or you can stay stuck in revolution. And it's either because you don't know how to get out, or sometimes we get stuck in revolution and we just want to stay in that comfort zone. And the comfort zone is not the place you want to live. It's the place you want to stop and pause, hang out for a minute, and regroup, but then to move forward by tackling more challenges and asking more questions about your life and really getting clear about what it is you want as a result of these experiences that you've had in your life. Beautiful. Asking quality questions to find perfection. So we kind of talked about that. Again, it's all been mixed into this class where, again, learning to ask the quality questions. The grief process has been a beautiful experience. I've been learning over the past few years with Dr. Demartini. If you haven't had the experience of this, and if you're going through some kind of situation, then please, by all means, send me a message and let's work through this. Because it could be one of the greatest lessons of your life is learning how to ask quality questions of your life. So, let me go back. Now, if there are any questions so far, I'd love for you, Gia, can you unmute yourself? Are there any questions yet? Okay. Who's here?
Hello, Dave. Do you hear me?
Got you now.
Yay. Dave. Oh. Hello?
Hello. Yeah. Are there any questions?
Oh, yes. I have a question, but did I interrupt
No, go ahead.
somebody? Well, throughout my life, I had many losses. My mother died, my both grandmothers, and my grandfather. And I've been working through it to neutralizing perception. I felt I have worked a lot on it, and recently I experienced the loss of a friend a week ago, and it hurt a lot. I felt deeply hurt and lost. And before that, a month ago, I lost my grandfather, and I didn't feel as much hurt. So my question is, even though if I work on the losses I have had in my life, would I feel pain in my future losses? Would it be painful or would it be reduced?
Yes. So a couple of
Did
things.
you get it? Uh-huh.
Yes, got it. So a couple of things. I think it's important to learn to change our language around things that happen, like, and use the word perceived, because you're perceiving a loss, right?
Yes.
And you've lost the form has just changed, okay? And so the more you're infatuated with someone or something, the more pain you will have when it leaves. So if
Yes.
you have more pain with a person leaving than, say, another person, so if your grandmother passed away and you have more pain than if your grandfather passed away, then that's an indicator that you perceive more positives and negatives of your grandmother than with your grandfather. Okay. And so there's two kind of components here. Number one is taking the person or the thing off the pedestal. Okay. Because again, when you see more positives and negatives, you're going to grieve the loss. So step one is, what are some drawbacks that I'm not seeing? What were some drawbacks to grandmother? What are some traits that I did not admire about her? What are some traits that she displayed that I actually am not missing? And try to equal those out. Okay. Because obviously you see more positives and negatives, more drawbacks to benefits of her leaving. So you want to ask to find the full quantum. And that's important, because if you're stuck in infatuation with a person or a thing, then it's going to be difficult for you to find and recognize and appreciate the new forms that they're showing up in. Okay. So equal out the benefits and drawbacks. Find, let's say if you have 20 traits that you admire about her, your grandmother, or about someone, find equal traits that you despise and you don't, or you're not missing about her. That will calm the emotions and get her back into present. So you don't see her as something that had someone that had more benefits and drawbacks. You just see her as a person who had both sides. And that actually is the balance of love. When you're polarized, infatuation or resentment is not love. Sometimes we confuse infatuation with love. I think we do that when we meet people in relationships, or with family members, or with things that we see more benefits and drawbacks to. We call that love when it's actually not. It's actually impulsive infatuation. But when you can actually take the time to see both sides of a person or a thing, you're actually honoring them, and you're seeing their full quantum of who they are as a person. Because no one wants to be on a pedestal for very long. No one wants to be on a pit. You want to have someone in your heart by seeing full quantum. Because so full quantum's the heart. Half quantum's is impulse or instinct, and is one-sided, and you're not seeing the person for who they truly are. Okay, so take the time to equal out benefits and drawbacks of the person and just see both sides of them, because you can't have grief without some kind of relief. Okay, so look for the relief. This is probably when I was going through my process when Tanya passed, was one of the most challenging exercises for me, was finding the relief that's present because of her passing. And that was a really challenging exercise, but it was the most powerful one that I did, because it got me back into center again, so I can actually get back to intuition and think. Because again, when you're polarized, you're not here in your heart, intuition, you're in your mind. So that's number one, get them off the pedestal by seeing both sides. Then now you're opened up to being able to ask the question, what are the traits that I miss the most? And what are those, who's showing up now in my life? What are the new forms? Who's now displaying these traits of the person? And then scan your life, because you'll see that as soon as that person leaves, we have a transformation of that energy, either into one or many in the world. It could be yourself, it could be multiple people, it could be one other person, two other, many. So find those traits and where are they showing up now? Because because again, one of the principles is everything is just an energy, and there's a conservation of energy. You're not gonna lose the energy. It's gonna just transform into something else. Okay. And so ask the quality question, where are the new forms showing up? And once you find those new forms, ask the question, what is the benefit to me and my highest values of these new forms showing up? How is these new forms showing up in myself or others actually serving me now even greater than before? Okay, how's it benefiting me and my values? Okay, that's number two. Then the last question is, what was the drawback of the old form of being with this person? How is it actually a drawback to me? And this is where that's why you get them, once you get them off the pedestal, you can actually start seeing the really reality of the drawbacks, because you don't miss every single thing about the person. You know, if they smelled funny, or if they didn't talk nice to you sometimes, or they were rude or whatever, you don't miss those parts. So you want to access the memory of those parts and remind yourself of who they truly are as a person, because no one's on a pedestal. No one can stay on the pedestal. It's too much pressure. You know, it's like if you've ever been on a pedestal with someone, it's not that comfortable actually, because they look up to you and put you on a pedestal, and you're going to actually probably eventually sabotage that by doing something to get you off the pedestal. It's not a place you want to stay, and you don't want to put someone on a pedestal, because that means you're in a pit, and now you're putting yourself below them, and you're not honoring your own perfection. You don't want to be there either. You want to see both sides of each person and reflect that in you. And we're going to talk, that's one of a couple of talks now is going to talk about how to learn to see reflections in yourself and others, and reflections in your world to yourself. So that's coming up. So Gia, did that answer your question?
Totally did. Thank you very much.
Great.
And I put some other questions.
Okay,
One question. And do you have the reading steps for integrating a loss? The ones you just said?
yes, I do. Yeah, that's the steps. Is
Yay.
identify what you perceive is missing. Okay, find the new forms that it's showing up in, the benefits of the new forms to yourself, your highest values, drawbacks of the old form. Now, and all you're doing is you're seeing the full quantum of things. We're not making up stuff. You're not making up a story. You're actually allowing yourself to see the truth of really what's happening in reality now, because the reality is things have changed in your life. The reality is maybe someone's passed. That's not going to change. That's the reality now. So we can either choose to live in the new reality by asking the questions to see how it's serving us now, so we can have gratitude for what is as it is, or we choose to live in the past and staying in a revolution and not growing because we're stuck thinking that the past was better than the present. And if you think past was better than the present because of a person was in it, or because of a thing was in it, or because of the experience that you had, then you're going to stay stuck and comparing your old life to a new life. And when you compare an old life to your current life, then you're going to set yourself for depression, because that's what depression is your comparison. You have a fantasy about what you think your life should be like, or you think your life was better before. And now when you look at your life compared to what it was, you see that it's not as good. It's not as fulfilling. It's not as inspiring. And all that is a perception based on a lack of full quantum of seeing the reality of what's going on, the reality of all the new forms that this person is showing up in, and all the new forms that this thing you might have thought it was missing is now showing up in. I did a beautiful exercise. I was probably about 15 years ago, where I was going through some financial issues. I had, and in my perception, I was feeling depressed and down because I thought that I could not have a fulfilling life doing the things I love doing without a lot of money. And so I remember sitting on my deck one night and I go, let me just list all the things that I actually love. What are the things that I love doing in my life? What are my values, and what are things that give me the most joy, that I feel the most fulfilled doing? And I started making a list of all these things that actually I love doing, and it gave me that feeling. And everything on that list I could do without a dime, without any money. It was being in nature, going for hikes, connecting to people, sitting under the tree, or just reading a book, and those kind of things. It was all these things that I stopped appreciating, because I was comparing my life to an old life and thinking I can't be fulfilled without this certain thing, which was at the time cash money. And then it made me look at just how valuable the new form of wealth is in my life. Where did it actually show up? If I had money, if I had wealth in cash form, and now it's gone in that form, what's the new form that it showed up in? And it was amazing that it showed up in new friendships. It showed up in me appreciating my life and appreciating all these things that I love doing that don't cost anything to do. And I had so much more of appreciation for experiencing those things that I had access to, even if I have nothing, no money. And then looking at how my health and well-being took a turn in that time in my life when I was feeling down. It woke me up, and it got me back on track again with my health and well-being. And so without being able to ask those types of questions, can you see how easy it is for people to get stuck in grief the rest of their entire life? Because it's not about time. Because you think, oh, it'll go away in time. You just need more time. Well, it's nothing to do with time, because it has to do with your perception. And you will continue to grieve the loss of something. You will continue to resent the gain of something until you shift your perception around it and can see how it serves and see the new forms that it's in. And if you don't do that, then you'll stay stuck in this grief cycle for the rest of your life. And we see people do it probably all the time. And so, because each experience, like we've talked about, I think in every class, each experience that we have, which is, would you agree that if someone passes, that's an experience that you're in the matrix of, you're in the experience of that. So each experience comes with it nuggets of wisdom that are meant for you to access and learn, or you wouldn't be experiencing it. Because you must be needing to grow in some areas, because that's what's needed in your present and in the future. You must be needing to learn something that's from this experience. And if you don't know how to access the nuggets of wisdom that are there in each of your experiences, then you're going to repeat the same experiences again and again and again, just like school. When you don't learn the lesson or get the lesson from a class, you're going to repeat it again. And so that's why it's important. And I encourage everyone to scan your life up to this point, and let's clear out any misperceptions. There's been positive, more positive, negative positives, that there's been a loss without a gain or a gain without a loss, and get to where you can see the gratitude and the lessons from each experience. So now you can take that with you moving forward. And then you can get more present in the moment. You can see the full quantum, connect to intuition, tap into inner voice, and then create a vision for your future and it's not being ran by fear and anxiety. Because when you clear your past, then you clear the future anxiety and fear. Because the more you do this work and the more you see the full quantum and the more you see how things are just transforming, it gets rid of that future anxiety and fear. Because no matter what happens to you, no matter what occurs, no matter what you experience in your future, you're going to have a balance of positive, negative. You're going to have a transformation of energy from one form to the next. You can't screw this up if you just ask the right questions and see full quantum. And this is where the work pays off, is when you can take the time to really master this type of work. Again, this is a self-mastery program. So this is part of self-mastery, is mastering the art of asking quality questions when you're in the experience, so you can pull out those nuggets of wisdom, so you can reduce your anxiety in the present, reduce your fear of the future, get back to center again, and just plan your life like you want. So hopefully that answered that question. Any more questions showing up, Gia?
I don't see more questions, Dave. The only one I see is, can you share your experience around losing intimate partners? But I think you already answered it, no?
Yeah, that's great. Because
Yes.
again, I had not quite had that experience to that degree in my life until November of 2020 when Tanya passed away. So I got to really dive in firsthand of how this work and being able to ask these questions. You know, I've seen it, I saw it done, like I said, with Dr. Demartini many times, but to be able to really have the experience of going through it and just feeling what it felt like when you perceive a loss, really opened me up to an understanding of what it's like on a whole different level. And so I certainly wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing today and talk around it without having the experience. Now, on that note, it's silly to think that you can just answer the questions and be done with it, because there's going to be layers of things that happen. And that's why, especially when you lose, you have a perception of a loss of a loved one, there may be layers that come up. You may hear a song, or you may see a picture, and that will spark a new layer of missing, and you're perceiving you're missing something. And then you just go back into the work. I got a really good example for you. This past weekend, we're actually having a memorial for Tanya in England here in a couple of months. And I'm putting together a slideshow, which means I'm going through about 2,000 pictures and picking about 200 of them and putting on a slideshow. And so it was a really challenging experience, because how many of you ever take photos with a loved one when you're arguing, or when you're not getting along, or when you're not talking, or when you're mad at each other, or you really don't want to be around them? You only take those photos mostly when you're in a state of having fun, or your connection, or whatever. So as I was going through these pictures over the weekend, I could feel myself dipping into the feeling of loss, and starting to kind of compare my current life to this life, and I could just feel that energy of just feeling down, really. And so what I did was I stopped and I reminded myself about what those pictures are, and how, yeah, these are all photos of just upsides. And so when you see 2,000 upsides, it's going to create a misperception, no doubt. Why wouldn't it? And so what I had to do at that point was then remind myself of the other side as well. Where were we having challenges? Where were we not connected? Where were we not getting along? Where were we having our own challenges at communicating? Where were we having disconnect? Where was we having stresses and health problems? Where were we having challenges in our career and our businesses? Where were we having challenges financially? And it was really a beautiful lesson, because it reminded me that, and as I started seeing the more and more of the true balance of what was going on, and seeing the full quantum, and seeing the truth about what was going on, which is, it not only had upsides, there was also the other side. You're not denying the upsides by any means, but you're also not forgetting the downsides as well. And I could just feel my energy just shifting as I kept answering the questions, until I got to the point of feeling nothing but love and gratitude for my experience, from our experience, what we've gone through, where I am today, and how I got here. And also appreciating all the forms that she is showing up in every day in my life, to the point of just being graced by it, and just being back to center again. So it's a powerful tool to have, that if you tap into asking these questions, you can navigate these experiences, and it doesn't have to take years and years. It just literally takes a shift in perception. And to shift the perceptions, you ask the quality questions, and be honest with yourself, and be truthful about the answers. And if you'll do that, you'll navigate any challenge that comes along your way with a little more grace and poise, It's not going to be a straight line. You're going to have ups and downs, but if you have the right quality questions, you'll stop the swings of ups and downs, and you can actually navigate with more of a flow. And self-mastery is not about not having challenges. It's about how to navigate life with flow by learning how to ask quality questions, tapping into your feedback. So hope that was helpful to hear that piece of the puzzle. So
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Dave. It was beautiful.
thank you. Any other questions? We got a few more minutes if we want to. We can answer. Gia, anything else?
Dave, I don't see more questions, so I think it's perfect. Thanks for answering all the questions.
No problem. So here's some homework. Book a synergy call. Scan your life. If you're having issues, if you need some help, the synergy call is free. We'll talk for up to 30 minutes and I can help get you unstuck, get you moving. So get clear on your values. If you haven't done it yet, watch the old videos, remind yourself, okay? And find those new forms by asking quality questions, and then touch base with me if you need some help. That's why I'm here. It's what I hear. It's what I do. So I appreciate your attendance. We're going to have this recording up on the YouTube channel soon. And our next call is coming up. This is going to be a juicy one. Your body is speaking. Are you listening? This is where I've been in my wheelhouse for 30 years, being a chiropractor and working with the mind body for 30 years. We're going to talk around how to listen to your body's feedback and to keep you on track. And then after that, it's going to be your world is your reflection. So mark the dates, make sure we got those times right. I think we had a time change. So, but you know what? We got a great talk tonight. Great for showing up, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Kim.
Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye, guys.
Awesome.